guys, it's Miss Minion! Woo! Okay, and this is Imperialism Video 1. Now I moved my little camera because some of you complained about not being able to see the notes, so I hope it works over here, and I will try to move it when it covers the notes. Okay? So, we are on learning target, let's see, 2.8. Explain the causes of American imperialism in the late 19th and early 20th century and evaluate the effects of imperialism. So we're looking at causes and effects. Okay? And our essential question is the second one. What were/are the benefits and consequences of America becoming an imperialistic nation? Awesome. Alright, let's get started. So, imperialism, flip video part 1. Imperialism started in 1867 and it lasted about 1914, the beginning of World War I, for America. And there's three major imperialistic presidents. So we have William McKinley, 1897 to 1901, Teddy Roosevelt, 1901 to 1909, and William Howard Taft, 1909 to 1913. We've already learned a little bit about TR and William Howard Taft, so you should know a little bit about them. Let's learn about William McKinley. Okay, so he's the president until 1901. He's elected twice, but he's killed during his first year of his second term. He's killed by someone who is an anarchist and someone who had lost their job, and they saw the president as kind of like the symbol of what they hated. Okay, so we've seen a lot of deaths due to anarchy so far in U.S. history. And so then Teddy Roosevelt will take over. McKinley was a very good president. He led the nation to victory in the Spanish-American War, which we'll talk about in either this video or the next one. Depends how far I get. He raised protective tariffs to promote American industry. So remember, tariffs are taxes on imports and exports. And presidents, whoa, there's the bell. And presidents will raise taxes on imports and exports so that people have to buy at homes, because if it's too expensive to buy overseas, then people will have to buy the stuff from home, which supports America's economy. He also maintained the nation at the gold standard. That's gold being money being backed up by gold. And then he expanded the U.S. strongholds in the world. When we say stronghold, that means America's grip on countries and kind of taking countries under their wing during this imperialistic time period. Now, Teddy Roosevelt, before he was president, TR was Assistant Secretary of the Navy and a military officer in the Spanish-American War. Rough Riders, anybody remember that from last time? Okay, so he was very well known in the United States. People did love him. He was kind of different than other vice presidents. Nobody really thought that he would ever be president, so they picked him because they thought, hey, people will vote for McKinley if he's the vice president because everybody likes him, but nobody really thought what would actually happen if Teddy Roosevelt was president. Okay, so America is interested. So you see, this is American territorial expansion. So this is 1853, and so this is all of the places that America is most interested in. All of these islands, you see that they're leading the islands all the way up to East Asia, and this is going to help with relations between East Asia and America. America is trying to take these islands. They want them for Navy bases and also just for stops along the way. And it was said at this time that whoever owned the sea owned the world. Okay, so if you control the sea, then you control the world. So, America imperialism took interest in what part of the world, and you got to just go back and maybe look and see what ocean that was. Okay? Alright, so before we get way ahead of ourselves, what is the definition of imperialism? The policy in which stronger nations extend their economic, political, or military control over weaker territories. So what I want you to do in your C notes, which I will be looking for, is write a definition of imperialism in your own words. This needs to be something that shows that stronger nations go to weaker nations and they try to extend their control economically, politically, militarily. We're not talking about a country that goes on like missions to help save a country or whatever. This is the one country getting involved in another country and getting their web all tangled in there. And I'm just realizing now that you can't see the thing, so there you go. Okay? Awesome. Now, 3 reasons for us to have American. Why did America go toward this imperialistic thought and idea? Number 1, competition for raw materials and markets for its manufactured goods. Okay, so there's things other countries have that we don't have that we want, and we want to control that market. Number 2, political and military competition based on the need for a powerful new navy. So all of these countries, all of the big countries are kind of rising up, and they're starting to build militaries, and they're building navies And so this is going to be one thing that will help us build a powerful Navy. The other thing that, oh America, always thinking you're better than everybody else. Number 3, a belief in racial superiority and the mission to spread Christianity and civilization to the world. Now, the President McKinley actually stated that the reason why they were involved in other countries was to spread Christianity, which is not something that you would hear today because America and the world in general is more accepting of all religions or no religions. Okay, so if you look at this political cartoon, what has the United States fought for? These are the countries that we've fought for. Okay, and this is what it looks like on our side, and this is what it looks like on the side of the country that we went into. So while we say, oh, we're going to help these countries, oh, we're going to make them Christian, it doesn't necessarily benefit these countries. It really only benefits the United States. Okay, so not everyone agrees with imperialism. We call those people anti-imperialist. Okay, so they say not everyone thinks that we should expand and we should get involved. Some felt it was morally wrong. Okay, some felt it cost too much money. And some famous anti-imperialists would be Andrew Carnegie, Steele, anybody? Jane Addams, we talked about her with the whole houses and settlement houses, sorry. And William Jennings Bryan, who we've discussed a couple times, okay? And we'll keep discussing him because he's around for a while. So, we know that these 3 people were against it, and they just thought it wasn't right. They thought that it's just too much money, and America has things that they need to focus on inside. So if you saw the dates, it was like late 1800s to 1914, and this is during the Progressive Era, which is why we're testing and doing all of it together. Okay, Progressive Era, people want change in the United States. Some people think, why are we not fixing what's wrong within the United States? Why are we going out and kind of monopolizing other countries? Okay, that bell every time. Okay, so so America is going to expand into Alaska. That's the first place that they're going to kind of reach their little paws to get. And William Seward, who was the Secretary of State at the time, who was part of the cabinetry of Lincoln, was against slavery, pretty awesome guy all around. He went and he purchased Alaska. They got Alaska, all of those acres for $7.2 million. Essentially, the United States paid 2 cents an acre. So, had we not purchased Alaska, Russia would have land in North America. And so they saw this, they foresaw this as a really good purchase for later, just in case. And they call it Seward's Folly because basically people thought Alaska was just a frozen wasteland and we had wasted all our money. But we see now today that that actually was a good purchase. Okay. Other things that occur, America expands into Hawaii. And basically America annexes Hawaii, kind of takes over Hawaii. When you annex something, you don't ask and you don't say, hey, we're going to come take you. No, they basically just, like, take you, okay? In 1898, U.S. President McKinley annexed Hawaii and made Hawaii part of the United States. But before he did that, basically, he had to overthrow the Queen and the Native Hawaiians. We're going to discuss this a little bit more in class in our activity, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Yay! And we'll discuss kind of America's dirty tactics on that. Why do they want Hawaii? They want access to China in the east. Alright, that brings us to other conflicts. The Spanish-American War, this is 1898, so this would be William McKinley, president. Cuba is fighting Spain for independence, so Spain has Cuba. Get that in your head. One of the Cuban leaders was Jose Marte, and he would rise up and people would follow him, and when this happened, Spain put 300,000 civilians in concentration camps, and Jose Marti and many of them had to escape to New York. American newspapers began writing exaggerated claims of the Spanish brutality toward Cubans. We call that yellow journalism, which is the exaggerated news to lure new readers, which yellow journalism happens today. Just think about when you are in Publix or Kroger or whatever, and there's like tabloids and it's exaggerated news. Some of that's just made up, but this is exaggerated news. So what they would do is in the United States, they would, in the newspaper, talk about how mean the Spanish were. And the Spanish weren't nice, but they weren't brutal. And this would make Americans not like the Spanish. And so it's kind of a tactic to get the Americans to side with the Cubans. Okay? So the two biggest people who kind of went to war over this yellow journalism, there's two of them, Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst. They published lies about the war to sell the most papers, so they kind of go back and forth in a war, who can sell the most papers. So they make up all these lies, and then people really want America to do something about this. So America is going to get involved. All right, so there's 3 reasons we entered. Number 1, yellow journalism. Number 2, there's a letter that is published. A Spanish ambassador claims President McKinley is weak. And you know a president does not like to be called weak. And number 3, America had people in Cuba, and they saw this conflict happening between the Spanish and the Cubans, so they sent a ship called the USS Maine to sit at the dock in Cuba, and if war broke out, the Americans could get on the boat, and then the boat would take them back to the United States, so they wouldn't have to be in the middle of it. Well, the boat mysteriously blew up in Havana, and the U.S. blamed Spain. But we find out in 1976 that it was something wrong with the boat, had nothing to do with the Spanish. So America kind of uses this as a reason to go to war. Okay, so Cubans rebel against Spain, so that's just a picture of that. Yellow journalism. And then this is a picture showing the Maine exploding. Clearly, it's trying to play on the hearts of people in America that remember the Maine is what they're saying. Like, don't forget about the Maine, when really it was like a technical problem. It was not the Spanish. And the Spanish claimed, they said, we did not do this, but the Americans used it to go to war against them. And why are we so involved? You know, we say it's because we really want the Cubans to be, like, free and not have to worry about the Spanish. But really, if you look, we have a lot of investment in sugar and other agriculture in Cuba. Okay? Awesome. Okay, so in this war, U.S. attacks the Spanish fleet at Manila Bay in the Philippines. So what happens is the Spanish have islands along the way in the Pacific. Okay, and so instead of attacking Cuba, the U.S. goes to the Philippines, which is on the other ocean, and they attack. So it was kind of a surprise attack. The U.S. and the Filipino forces quickly defeat Spanish. And no, I did not spell Filipino wrong. That is how you refer to, use the F when you're talking about Filipino people. Okay, so then also we're going to fight them in Cuba. So we're fighting them on 2 fronts, trying to distress them. Okay, it's very fierce, and it's kind of disorganized. So Teddy Roosevelt leads a group of volunteers. He calls them the Rough Riders, and these people are like ex-convicts or cowboys. They're like, seriously, they're rough. And they go down there and they fight. They're just volunteers. They only play a small part, very small part, but of course Roosevelt gets really, he gets famous off that. Okay, so how does it end? Because that's the goal. What happened before, what happened at the end is what we're really cueing in on here. Spain grants Cuba its independence in 1898. The U.S. gets Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam, all the countries that they fought Spain for. And the Platt Amendment occurs. And the Platt Amendment gives the U.S. a permanent base in Cuba. So basically, the Cubans fought the Spanish so they could get their independence. The Spanish grant the Cubans their independence, and then the U.S. just kind of takes over. And they do not give Cuba their independence. They put a base on, they put a base there. And then look, if you see real quick, these are the islands that are blocked that we got in this. So in this actual question, you know, we have the base. We got several islands out of this, and then these other ones are all right. Cuba could not make any treaty with another nation that would weaken its independence, and these are all things they signed to end the war. So as you're reading these, think about, are they really free? Cuba had to allow the United States to buy or lease naval stations in Cuba. C, the U.S. would have the right to intervene to protect Cuba independence. So if someone was trying to attack Cuba, the United States could come in. Establish a government. And Cuba's debts had to be kept low to prevent other foreign countries coming in and landing troops to enforce payment. So really, Cuba is tied to America at this point. So as you can see, what we've seen so far about imperialism is we've taken Alaska. Well, we bought that one. We bought Alaska. We took Hawaii, and we also took over Cuba. And so that's it for today. You should be able to talk about some of the causes and some of the effects already of imperialism. We will continue next time and talk about William Howard Taft, talk about Teddy Roosevelt carrying a big stick, and y'all have a great fall back. Bye!